I just want to say good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This evening, we have Mr. Terrell Williams from FSU Admissions. I'm really excited for you guys to hear firsthand from admissions, kind of the process and information straight from them. So I'm going to go ahead and just pass it off to Mr. Terrell. And if you guys have any questions, I believe you can put them in the chat box as we go. So I will hand it off to you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. So like she said, my name is Terrell Williams, and I work in the Office of Admissions at Florida State University. I oversee the application process for our Care Summer Bridge program, as well as our high school partners program. So I do have a lot of experience working with students that are coming from diverse backgrounds, first generation students like myself, as well as students that are kind of just trying to get opportunities to go to college. So with this particular presentation today, it's going to be a rather short presentation. So that gives you more time to ask those questions that you can potentially drop in the chat, and we can kind of answer those as we go. So our presentation will probably be about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe a little shorter than that. But it's going to give you everything you need to know in terms about Florida State, how to apply, when to apply, what we look for in students in terms of our application review. We're going to talk about cost of education as well, and some other things that you can get to know about Florida State. All right, so this is our admissions presentation. So this is going to talk about, like I said, how to apply, when to apply, what it means to be a competitive applicant, and also what happens on decision days. We'll also talk about costs, like I mentioned. We'll talk about housing, as well as different scholarship opportunities for you all as well. So a little brief background about Florida State University. We are the oldest continuous site of higher education in the state of Florida. You will see that we have just under 43,000 students at our institution, or just over 43,000 students, at our institution. You will see we have just over 32,000 undergraduates. So those students are the ones that are taking your undergraduate level courses, so your bachelor's degree seeking students. You will see that we have a 21-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So even though we have a larger university in terms of enrollment, our class sizes tend to not exceed the 21 student limit. And you'll also see that our 4-year graduation rate is actually ranked #1 in the state of Florida among public universities. And we are located in the state capital of Tallahassee, so there's a lot of opportunities for students to gain internship opportunities, post-secondary opportunities in terms of once they graduate, as well as kind of get to know each other on campus, because we are a college town. We are surrounded by 2 other institutions, Florida A&M, as well as Tallahassee Community College, so students can interact with other college students in the area. So moving on to the application process. So how to apply for admission at Florida State. So there are 3 ways you can apply. You can apply directly through our institutional application at admissions.fsu.edu, or you can apply through one of our external applications via the common application or the coalition application. Now, if you are planning to submit those external applications, that does give you an opportunity to apply up to 10 schools at one time for one application fee. With applying directly to Florida State, you'll only apply to our institution. So that application will be a little quicker because we'll get to process the information that same day. With Common App and Coalition, it takes about 24 to 48 hours for us to process those applications. So we do encourage students to apply a little earlier, so that kind of gives you some wiggle room to make those necessary changes in your application. Now, we do have some supplemental applications for you as well. So if you're interested in applying to our University Honors Program, the Care Summer Bridge program, or any of our special programs like film, dance, music, studio art, or theater, they do require supplemental applications. Now, on the admissions application, there will be questions that ask you, are you interested in applying to honors? Or what about care? As well as any special programs you want to indicate as your major at Florida State. So if you indicate yes to one of those questions or indicate one of those special programs as your major, those applications will appear on your application status check for you to submit by that November 1st deadline. The honors application is actually due on November 15th. So you have some additional 2 weeks to complete that application. So moving on to the supplemental information. So you're going to talk about the SAR. So the SAR is your self-reported student academic record. This is an electronic version of your high school transcript. So this website, you're going to create your account and you're going to manually report all of your grades from 9th grade to 12th grade. Now, 12th grade, you don't have any courses completed because you are still in progress with those courses. So you'll list those courses as in progress on your SSAR. Now, we do give additional weight to your particular grade. So if you're taking any AP IB, ACE, or dual enrollment classes, those get additional point in our review. All of your pre-AP, pre-IB, pre-ACE, and honors courses get additional half point in review. So we are making your GPA the weighted GPA, and we're only looking at your core classes that you take during your high school career. With the SAR, once you're finished reporting all of your grades and you press submit, there's going to be a SSARID number, which you're going to copy and paste into your application status check under SAR ID number. That's how we're going to recalculate your GPA here at Florida State. Next, you're going to self-report your SAT and or ACT test scores. Now, keep in mind that we do super score for both of these tests. So the more times you take it, we're going to make you look as good as possible to take your highest individual scores and give you a brand new composite score. Now, with the application process, the unique thing about our application, you have until December 31st to report a test score, as long as you complete your application by the November 1st deadline. So you complete everything first, and if you are retested, you can always go back in and add new scores. We will not review your application until December if you have new scores coming in that late. Next, you will upload your essay and your resume. I like to tell students all the time, your essay and your resume can open doors for you that your GPA and your test scores do not. So if you have a personal story of resilience, any goals or experiences you want to share with us, you can outline that in your essay. The essay is 650 words or less, so it's nothing too extravagant. With the resume / list of activities, there's no particular format for this. So if you want to write about your part-time job, if you have one, any sports or clubs you're involved in, or any family responsibility that you may have at this particular time. So if you're taking care of an older relative or a younger sibling, you could talk about that in your resume, because that shows that you are able to be held accountable as well as manage your time wisely, because you are taking care of someone as well as doing your schoolwork. Next, you're going to complete those particular residency declaration forms. So this is going to basically be how you're going to claim yourself as an in-state resident and get those in-state tuition fees. So for this declaration form, you're going to need your parent or guardian's driver's license information, their vehicle registration, or their voter's registration card. That's how you're going to basically be claimed as an in-state resident. And if you don't have two of those three items, we can talk about additional pathways for you to get that residency for in-state. Now, lastly, I can talk about those supplemental applications, which will be on your application status check. You can complete those once you are ready to do so by those particular deadlines. There's also a QR code here as well, so you can start your application. So if you want to scan that with your phone, you'll be able to see what our application looks like and how that process will go. Here's an example of what your application status check will look like. So this is going to give you a welcome page as well as the application status. So you'll see step 1 through 4. So the first step will receive your application. Then the second step will be awaiting materials. So awaiting materials, you'll see those red X's at the bottom. Those will be awaiting items that we are waiting to receive from you. And then once they have been received, they'll turn into a green check mark. So you'll be notified that they have been received. Step 3 is when your application will be under review. So once everything's been submitted, it will be under review. And then once it goes to step 4, which will be sometime in the spring, right before our decisions are released, you will see that it's awaiting decision. And then our decisions will be released on February 17th. So you have a couple months to get your decision for Florida State. And continuing on with the priority deadline. So if you apply by November 1st, you are guaranteed a decision by February 17th, as long as your supporting documents are submitted by that particular time. Like I said, you have until December 31st to report your test scores. For students that missed that November 1st deadline, you can apply by that March 1st deadline, which is our rolling decision. But I will be completely transparent for students that apply later. The chances get slimmer and slimmer because we have limited spots remaining, because students that apply early, they get priority on housing, admissions, scholarships, as well as our Care Summer Bridge program. So you make sure you apply early so you can get priority on those decisions. So this will be actually our last slide before I go into the Q&A. Actually, 2 more slides before we go into the Q&A section of our presentation tonight. So this is our holistic review process. So most people always ask, like, what goes into a review for Florida State? So as you all can see, this does not mention any GPAs. It doesn't mention any test scores. It kind of outlines what we do as a staff here at our university. So there's 4 key components to our review process. Of course, we factor in your academics, but not just your GPA. We want to see how you performed over those 4 years. So are we looking at those particular letter grades that you've been receiving over those 4 years? So A's and B's do help you get into college. But for students that may get a C or two within an AP class or an honors course, that's not necessarily looked down upon at Florida State, but more students are getting those A's and B's. So that does kind of have to be more competitive in our review process. With the rigor of your curriculum that I talked about that earlier with our SAR, so AP classes, dual enrollment, ACE and IB classes and honors, they get different weight. So for students that say are taking a heavy course load of all honors classes or maybe some sprinkled in some AP courses, their rigor is a little stronger than the student that say that's just taking all regular courses. So please keep that in mind. You want to challenge yourself throughout your 4 years of high school because that makes you more competitive as well as prepares you for that curriculum that you're going to experience at Florida State. Next, we're going to talk about test scores. So like I mentioned, test scores, you can retest up until December 31st. We'll take your highest particular scores and give you a brand new composite score. So outside of that quantitative information in terms of GPA and test scores, we do factor in qualitative data. So your essay and your resume, that can paint a picture of you as a student. So what do you want to talk about that your grades have shown us, or your grades may not have shown us what you've been going through? So with me reviewing for our Kids Summer Bridge program, we do have a lot of students that identify as first generation, as well as students that may be experiencing some family instability, some economic hardships, some language barriers with their family members, as well as kind of just inconsistency with their academic journey. So that essay is an opportunity for you to talk about that experience while being able to balance your schoolwork. So goals, any experiences, any personal stories of experience, we do encourage you to write about, because that paints you as a full student and have a holistic review process for you, versus just kind of just submitting your GPA and your test scores and relying on that solely. With the landscape data, that talks about important information about your school that you've attended and your neighborhood. So I love the landscape tool because it provides context for your application. So let's say, for example, if a student attends a high school that does not offer AP classes and all you can take is honors courses, we're going to factor that into your review process. Same thing for a student that may be at a school that may be offering dual enrollment courses. Are you taking advantage of that opportunity to take dual enrollment or AP classes versus another student at that particular high school? So instead of comparing you to 60,000 other students, we're comparing you to the same students at your particular high school. And are you basically outperforming your high school? Or are you kind of under the radar in terms of the class that you want to take because you're kind of concerned about getting a bad grade in a more of a higher level course versus just getting A's in regular courses? So make sure you are challenging yourself, because we do factor that into our review. And I like to say we are the Office of Admissions and not the Office of Denial. So we try to find many pathways for you to get admitted to Florida State. So these are our multiple pathways to get into Florida State. So of course you have your fall or your summer acceptance. If you are applying, you can have the option of applying for fall or summer. If you apply for the summer term, you will begin in late June for the summer term. You'll be there for a total of 6 weeks, have a 3-week break, and then come right back for the fall term. If you apply for fall and you're admitted for fall, you will start in August and you'll transition directly to that spring semester as well that following year. Now, when you are applying, I do encourage you to apply for the term that you intend on enrolling. But if you are kind of concerned about the summer term in terms of metrics, you can apply for fall, and then you'll have a fallback plan of summer, because we automatically consider you for the summer term if you don't meet those fall requirements. That's where that summer offer comes into play. So let's say you apply for fall, don't meet those requirements, we will automatically consider you for summer and then give you an offer. To be considered a summer student, you have to accept that offer by a particular date. Once you do that, you'll receive your official letter of acceptance from Florida State acknowledging that you have been admitted for the summer. Now, if you don't gain fall admission, nor do you get summer admission, but we see you as a strong applicant, there's 2 other ways you can get to Florida State. So we have our Seminole Pathways program where there's 4 different options you can select. So we have our international programs where you can do a first semester abroad or your first year abroad. And then we have our transfer pathway where you can basically start at Tallahassee Community College or your local community college and transfer as early as January. And we have our Panama City campus, which is about 2 hours west of our main campus, where you will complete a full year there and transfer to our main campus as early as that following fall semester. So there's multiple pathways to Florida State. So it doesn't matter when you start, you'll still have the opportunity to graduate from Florida State within that 4-year time frame. which is the ultimate goal. So I believe I'll share one more slide and then we'll get to the Q&A section. So this side is more of the quantitative stuff that students may want to see to kind of help them visualize themselves when they apply. So this talks about our application admission statistics from last year. So you'll see that we received slightly over 66,000 applications. The thing I like to point out on here is not the GPA, not the test scores. In the bottom left, you will see that 63% of students that applied last year and were admitted had all A's and B grades. So those all A and B grades do weight a lot because those students are more competitive and they are more prepared in terms of that college going process. 50% of our students took an advanced level math. So basically that means a calculus or above. So that's calculus honors, AP calculus AB, AP calculus BC, or like a college algebra course. So those courses do give additional weight. And for students that are taking an advanced world language, you saw that 36% of them had a third world language or above. So we do encourage you to kind of keep challenging yourself with world languages. And because it is a requirement here at Florida State to have 2 sequential units of world language. So our application process is competitive, but I am here today to kind of talk about how we can kind of remove the anxiety that comes along with applying to college, but also kind of answering questions you all may have about being a college student at Florida State.
Yeah, somebody had a question about the SAR, and if you could actually dive into that just a little bit more. They said, did you say only weighted for SAR? But I think just a little bit of question mark on what grades go in factor into the SAR.
Yeah, great question. So with the SAR, we factor in all of your core classes. So English, math, natural science, social science, and your world language courses. We will weight your GPA. But on the SAR, it does give you the option to list your high school weighted GPA. So that's probably going to be the closest thing that you're going to have to your FSU GPA. Now, I will say with the SSAR, we do not factor in electives unless they're AP, IB, or ACE. So we will not look at any of your elective courses at the time that you are applying. So please keep that in mind. You don't have to report those additional courses because I know some of you are taking multiple elective courses, but they won't be factored into your review process for Florida State.
Oh, we have another question. So when it comes to the admission process, we're completing with those within our school during the entire time.
So technically, yes. So a lot of students realize that, okay, you may be thinking about you're going to be competing with students from all 50 states, over 100 countries, but in reality, we're looking at your particular high school. So let's say if your high school, like I said, offers certain courses that we can see, like let's say they offer 20 AP classes. And let's say, for example, one student is taking 4 AP classes and another student is taking 10 AP classes over their 4 years. That student with a 10 AP courses is going to be a little bit more competitive because they've challenged themselves within that context of their particular high school. So we do encourage you to challenge yourself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have a lesser chance of getting in if you're only taking 4, because you may have family responsibilities. You may be working a part-time job. You may be a first-generation college student, so you may not want to overwhelm yourself. So there's different things that we look at. So just keep in mind that we are comparing you to you. So basically, what are you doing at that particular school to maximize your opportunities?
Someone else asked, you mentioned AP honors will weight heavier. How is ACE looked at? When there has been no need to take AP courses? I think this is a question a lot of our students, at least from the STRIDE schools I'm at, they take ACE courses.
Gotcha. So ACE is on the same level as AP. So you're going to get additional weight for those particular courses. If you pass the ACE exam, I believe it's on a letter scale. So if you pass it with a certain letter, you get that college credit. Same thing with AP. If you pass a score with a 3 or above, you'll get that college credit. So ACE courses still give you that additional weight and then potentially give you college credit if you pass those exams.
If we apply after November 1st, is our deadline December 31st or March?
So if you apply after November 1st, the deadline will be March the 1st. But we do have some wiggle room for students that may, let's say they apply on November 3rd. We can work with those students to basically make sure the application is in. But it also depends on how many students are applying later versus how many students are applying early. So we can work with students depending on where they're applying from.
Yeah, I believe it is encouraged to get it in on November 1st if possible, correct?
Correct. So get it in as early as possible. And I know right now with September 22nd, a lot of students, I will say, the bulk of our students apply the week of our deadline. So get everything in early, because that way you can go in and make changes if necessary. You can, update your essay. You can go in and add new grades and new courses versus submitting everything at the last minute and then realizing, oh, I forgot my resume. Oh, I forgot this. Make sure you do it early so you can go back in and make those edits if necessary.
Someone asked if a junior should apply and do the SAR or just apply next year.
So juniors are not able to apply this year unless they're graduating in January as an early high school student. So next year for juniors, the application will become available in August for you to submit the application. Same thing with the SAR. The SAR becomes available every August for prospective applicants.
Yeah, I just have a question that I want to throw in for myself is I know that we do have some younger students on this call. So what can they be doing now, even though they're not going through the application process currently?
Gotcha. Great question. So for students that are underclassmen, like your 9th and 10th graders, I think the thing I want them to grasp is those particular years matter. So your 9th and 10th grade years kind of set the foundation for the rest of your high school career. And when you start applying to college, because a lot of people think 9th grade doesn't matter, but colleges look at 9th grade to see grade trends. So let's say if 9th grade, you started off really great, like had all A's and B's. Then 10th grade, it started to dwindle down to B's and C's. And then 11th grade, it was still inconsistent. We do factor that into your review process. Same thing if student, they dealt with that transition from middle school to high school a little rougher, they can basically kind of earn their way up after that freshman year of high school. So that can be vital for them to kind of learn about. And then for juniors right now, it's kind of prepping your classes for next year, as well as kind of finishing out your junior year strong, because this will be the last year of grades that you have before you start applying to college. In the spring semester, majority of our juniors do take an in-school SAT, or they'll register for one SAT to kind of see what that test is like. That score necessarily won't impact your decision, but it does see, okay, let's say you took the test in April, did your scores improve once you took it again in October, or was it still the same score? So make sure that you are registering for as many tests as possible. I tell students, take the test in the springtime, take one in summer, and then take as many more that you need for that particular fall term.
Sorry, I'm catching up on some questions here. In your opinion, from what you've seen, do you think there's anything that is preferred when it comes to AP, ACE, dual enrollment, and so on?
That is a great question. So I will be completely transparent. For AP, ACE, and IB, there is a high reward and a low risk. So high reward means if you pass the exam, you get the college credit. That's simple enough, right? For dual enrollment, it's high reward and high risk, because yes, you pass that particular course for dual enrollment, but let's say, for example, you don't pass that class. That affects your college GPA. So that's going to be your starting GPA once you get to Florida State or once you get to college. So that'll be your transfer GPA once you start off with. So we do tell students to make sure that they can handle that particular course load, because dual enrollment is different than AP and IB, because those AP and IB are taken at the high school. And then some dual enrollment, you have to get transportation to go to that particular local community college. So we do factor that into your review process. So it's the same. The only thing that's different is dual enrollment has a college GPA that's attached to it, which could affect some students.
Another great question, is there any consideration or are you looking at grades differently for during the COVID period, that lockdown time?
Yeah, so for the SSAR, there's a drop-down box that says, did COVID-19 affect your grades for this particular year? You can check that box and we'll factor it into your decision. So I know for students that technically started in 10th grade for our seniors. So 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade technically could have been impacted by COVID, because some students were virtual, then they went back to a hybrid kind of model. Now they may be all in person. So your grades could have fluctuated over that 3-year time frame. And then for our underclassmen, you may have experienced the same thing, because as a 9th grader, you may have went from middle school to high school and it's been completely virtual. So that technically does factor into our decision. They can check that box on their SSAR.
Some other universities are accepting test scores after the deadline, but the application must be submitted by the deadline. Is FSU doing something similar, or does everything need to be in by November 1st?
So with the deadline, so your application, your SSAR, your essay, and your resume all could be submitted by November 1st. Same thing with your test scores, but we are giving students an opportunity to submit new test scores in October, November, as well as December. So technically you have until December 31st to report all of your scores for this fall semester. So the score that you report initially will not be the same score that we use in your review process. So continue to take the test. I know there's an SAT coming up next Saturday. And I know there's an ACT the following Saturday. So there's opportunities for students to take it in October. Same thing in November as well as December. So make sure that you are maximizing those opportunities because you potentially can get, in-state scholarships as well as qualify for admission in multiple schools. Another thing for students, let's say, for example, you complete all those tests by December 31st. And let's say your score is not good enough per se to get in for a summer fall semester. You can potentially go through our reconsideration process and we will factor in your February test. So you still have another test that you can potentially take to still gain admission to Florida State. We will review that for our rolling decision, which is in March. So you have an opportunity to update your first semester grades, as well as provide us with the new test score as late as February.
And then the last question that we saw in here, somebody just asked if you're able to share your email address, or is there some other way that people can get questions to admissions?
Yeah, sure. So I'll share my email address in here. And then another thing that we are doing, what I'm doing this particular fall semester, is providing one-on-one virtual meeting times. So for any student that has particular questions that they may want to share in the public space, we can meet one-to-one Tuesdays through Thursdays between 4 and 5 to kind of talk about your experiences and how you want to submit your application. I am here for that. So if you want to email me and set up a time, I am available as early as next week. So we can kind of do that for you. And then we'll have more dates available in October.
That's awesome. And then somebody put in another question here. When it comes to CARE, can you go into a bit more detail about what you guys usually look for? Can you talk about the benefits of joining CARE?
Okay, so CARE is in my wheelhouse because I do review CARE applications specifically. So CARE is for first generation and Pell Grant eligible students. So to qualify for CARE, you have to complete the supplemental application, which is due by November 1st. That application is 4 short answer questions. And as a reviewer, those responses weight about 75% of your review. So we want to see how your particular writing skills are and some things that you may have experienced during your particular time in high school. So we factor that into your review, and then both FAFSAs are due by November 1st. So there's a FAFSA for 21-22, which is available now. Most students always ask, why are they doing 2 FAFSAs? The FAFSA for 21-22 is good until summer of next year. So if you are a CARE student, you are required to start in the summer. Then the FAFSA for 22-23 opens next Friday. That'll be good for fall 22, spring 23, and then summer of 23 if you elect to take a summer course. So CARE is one of the programs that I feel like Florida State does a great job of providing access for first generation and limited income students. And for the summer bridge program, students are required to stay on campus that summer, and then have all the expenses covered by the university. So tuition, housing, meals, books, etc., all covered by the university. During that 7 weeks that you're here, that first week is geared towards your transition and engagement programming. So you'll get an orientation, you'll get connected to your CARE ambassadors, you'll get to know your other classmates, and kind of get you connected, kind of make sure that you're not alone on campus. Then those next 6 weeks are geared towards that same kind of, hands-on environment, but you also be taking classes during that time as well. So with that 6 weeks, you are required to go to lab hours. So there are computer lab hours that you have to take, which is 10 hours a week. So basically 2 hours a day, you have to go to the lab. Most students maximize that time. Most students are taking 30 plus hours while they're in the lab to kind of make sure that they are good. And then once they complete those classes, they'll be taking a total of 7 credit hours. Once those classes are completed, they will actually go towards your degree at Florida State. So this is not a conditional admission. It's not probationary. Those classes you take will go towards your degree. Once you're done with those classes, it's a 3-week break, and then you come right back for the fall semester. And those same engagement opportunities are still there for you. So you're still connected to CARE. Those resources are still there for you until you graduate. So you're going to receive a CARE grant. So that CARE grant is worth $2,500 per year. And your FAFSA will give you those additional grants. And if you qualify for any scholarships, that can be added to your account as well. Another unique thing about CARE, if you are admitted to our university, you are not paying a dime to verify your enrollment. So the only thing that you are required to do is complete the CARE participation agreement. Now, if you do plan on staying on campus for the fall and spring term, there is a $50 housing deposit that's due. So that's the only thing that you're paying if you plan on staying on campus. But we do have a lot of off-campus opportunities for students, like our Southern Scholarship Foundation House. There's off-campus apartments, and then we do have some additional homes for students to basically kind of navigate while they're a student here. So we can talk about those ways for you to kind of get housing as a student here, but CARE does a great job of making sure that students never go homeless or never go hungry while they're at Florida State. So we do have different food pantries on campus within our CARE department, as well as a unconquered scholarship for students that may have experienced homelessness, unaccompanied youth, or in relative care while they're in high school. They'll get connected to that particular resource on campus as well. So CARE is a very robust program. Most people think it's just a summer bridge, but it's really a department on campus that's geared towards first generation students.
Okay, and I think we'll just do this one last question. How many students get accepted out of the 66,000?
Oh, that's a really good question. So last year, I want to say we admitted 1/3 of that 66,000. So about 20,000 students were admitted. Out of that 20,000, that's broken up between fall, summer, Seminole Pathways, and spring. We had 7,000 first-year students enrolled this past fall, which is a record number for our institution. So that can go one of two ways. Faculty and staff can be like, hey, you cannot do that again. Our classes are too overwhelming. So this year, we're going to have a smaller cohort. Or it can be like, oh, you guys did a great job. Do it again. We need 70,000 applications. So we're trying to figure out which way our faculty and staff are going to go after this first fall semester, because we do have a lot of students that came in with some accelerated credit, like AA degrees. Some students came in with up to 45 credits on AP, ACE, and IB. So they may be taking those upper level classes, which creates more space for our first year students. So we'll see this upcoming year, but I can tell you we are on pace to exceed that 66,000 number. And I know we're up by 25% in applications last time I checked. So it's going to be a busy fall semester reviewing applications.
Wow. That's something.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. That was awesome information. I'm sure that everyone got at least something out of that. If you have any other questions, he did put his email in the chat box, or you can reach out to one of your STRIDE coordinators and they could get you connected. But I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
No problem. Thank you all. And I look forward to connecting with some of you. My email's in the chat. So I do have those virtual meetings like I mentioned.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.